Okay. So in our pre-call, one of the things you said to me was, I still think that my role is to be the crazy person with a good idea. And I threw my ideas out there, and I don't transfer my frustration to my team when it doesn't happen fast enough. This is something I've struggled with through the whole journey of the Goodness Exchange for 11 years. When things didn't happen enough, I had to fight the urge to transfer that frustration to my team. Talk to us about patience and change over the arc of time.
I think I remember talking to you about that, and it's a learned skill. Let me be clear on that. I didn't start the project with massive, amazing patience and skills. It's something that I adopted along the way through necessity. Behind me here is my studio, right? And this is my new space, Linda. You haven't even seen my new space. I'll give you a tour when it's done. It's not done yet, but it's my new space. And so if I'm like, wow, I really want to take this iron oxide and I want to go make a big painting that has like half blue and half orange and all this stuff on it, I can just go make it. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does work. But I can just go make it. I'm in control of this space. I'm in control of that artistic, process. When you're collaborating with people who have a different set of expertise, when you are working in an environment where you have to go meet entities where they are, in this case, say state bureaucracies, policy procedures. Oftentimes the university has a lot of things that are in place. The engineering school works differently than the art school, all those kinds of things. So early on, as I would have mad ideas about things and be like, let's just do this, which is my natural state of being, is like, let's just do it anyway. Knowing it would probably fail, but we'll do it anyway. Even just getting to the doing, that's a process. And that's a process where it's like, well, are you going to be available next week? If we get this much pollution and we bring it and process it in the lab, can we get this much pigment out of it? If we do that, can we get the grad students lined up to do that? Do we have enough funding to get that next thing done, right? So that's just one kind of like small example of how I would run into that. And then I've got to communicate with several different people and entities to move to the next phase. It's not something I can snap my fingers and do with on my own, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so that yeah, go ahead.
And so, that's where we are on almost every effort anybody's ever started, is that it looks so simple to us, A to Z, from where we sit. But then there's all this other collaboration that has to happen through a group. And people do succeed in groups. Behind every Nobel Prize winner are 100 tired people. So that's the first thing that I learned that too, is that, man, it's not just as easy as you think. And if you start out with just that sort of dogged determination with a dose of low expectations, what do you think about that?
I think there's a beauty in madness. And I think that, like, honestly, I want to make sure that even though I'm communicating about this level of patience and the learned skill set of working patiently in collaborations and things like that, right? And allocating people their space and understanding when you need to let that go, or you need to just let it happen on a different timeline. Those are things that I've learned over more than a decade. So weaved in through all that is that I never stopped for a minute saying my next idea out loud, even if it wasn't going to get got to that week or that month or that year. And so I do think that I want people to feel validated, and I want to personally give them permission to very respectfully lay out your most mad idea as a solution or a way forward, with the caveat that it might drop flat for a while and you might have to be real quiet about it for a while, and come back. I just want to make sure that I don't want to miscommunicate, my Zia guys,
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. Now, there's kind of a synergy that has to happen too, like you described, in finding these other good people who were already in a similar mindset, but probably had to organize their own systems to match up with you well, right? Like, they were probably darn glad you came along, but then there was that, right? Like, there's stories here.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people who've approached me to collaborate, and it's, you don't expect every approach for collaboration to work. You're right. People, you gotta vibe, right? Doesn't mean you're the same person or anything at all, but you got a vibe. And so that was, I think, a real benefit of Professor Riefler, myself, and Michelle was like, forget about it. Everybody loves Michelle. She's like just awesome. And so there is an understanding, I think, from all three of us that like we're not going to give up on this because of a small roadblock. And we're going to come with creative things. So if you know that about your collaborator, if you feel that coming off of your collaborators, it's a lot easier to have patience. It just is, I've had to learn to recognize that even though I feel holistically generous and excited and welcoming in laying out my crazy ideas, that is not necessarily how people receive them, because people are very different than me. And so that is something that I've learned, that I don't tamp down my ideas. I'm going to lay it out. But what I do is then that frustration I spoke about is that I lay it out there and then I just watch the landscape and I just, okay, what happens? Do they respond? Are they quiet? I'll give you an example. So years ago, when we first got that first batch of money, and actually I should say that when you met me, we had been denied from just about everybody. We were really not getting funding from anybody. And that was for a number of reasons, including we were doing what's considered applied and research, right? A pure research and pure application. We were doing both at one time. And a lot of funding places were like, we don't know why would you do that? We don't know what that is, right? Other things that happened is that people didn't believe us. They thought it was too crazy of an idea, right? This is not going to work. We're not going to fund you, et cetera, right?
Almost too good to be true, John, in some ways.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people think that is madness, right?
Right.
Like it couldn't possibly work. That's too idealistic. Move along, right? So once we got Sugarbush Foundation was an incredible organization that continues to fund us to this day. Every year they give us, a good amount of money, and that's helped us bring graduate students on board, et cetera, other things. But there's two ways that the craziness happened. One is that when we didn't have any funding, we were denied funding, I went out to Gamblin Artists Colors in Portland, Oregon. I didn't tell them I was coming. And I'm not recommending this to everybody, but I happened to, in grad school, make my rent by working at an art supply store where I had met Robert Gamblin, the founder of Gamblin Artists Colors, And so we had bonded a bit. Yeah, he would come through and he would be like, his company was very young and very new. And he was so excited about pigments and colors and things. And I was excited about it. So once a year or so he would pop in and I'd be like, yeah, and this is for a couple of years. So I had this faraway hope that I don't know if my name would be recognized or anything. It'd been many years since we connected or something else. And so I actually just went there. I happened to be taking my family for a little trip out west. And I was like, listen, y'all just hang out in this museum. I got to go do something. Dad's got to go do something. I drove to Gamblin factory and I walked in and I was like, hey guys, my name is John Sabraw and I'm out here in Ohio. And the poor receptionist in the little anteroom to the factory, she was rightfully a little bit probably sketched out by me. And so she said, nobody can meet with you. And I was pretty insistent, tried to be cool about it. I probably wasn't very cool about it. And I tried to be insistent. And then she was like, oh, well, and then a couple of phone calls and she goes, okay, our plant manager, Scott, can come out and talk to you, but you have to stay here. He's only got 2 minutes. And that's all. So Scott Gelati, the plant manager at the time, comes out. And I left 3 hours later with an agreement for them to test our pigments with their independent labs and test in their factories. Yeah. Right. Wow. So that's a case where I knew Robert cared about pigments. I knew he cared about artists. I knew he cared about quality. And I knew that being an Oregon guy and out there, that I knew that they were really pushing sustainability in their own products and how they were generating them, all that. So I thought it was a good fit, but you take the crazy leap and you go out there and you say it, right? And it worked. Once Gamblin was on board, that gave our funders permission. Then we got funding.